1966, Sunset Sound Studios, Los Angeles. The doors had already been thrown out of the Whisky A Go-Go. Jim Morrison's improvised performance of The End, with its dark verses, had been too much even for the Sunset Strip. But here in the studio, there were no club owners to worry about, no audiences to shock or offend, just four musicians and the song that had been growing, evolving, and becoming something more dangerous with each performance. Their producer, Paul Rothchild, knew this was not going to be a typical recording session. The End wasn't really a song in the conventional sense. It was an 11-minute psychological journey that Morrison seemed to channel rather than simply perform. As the sun began to set over Hollywood, the band gathered in Studio 2. Ray Manzarek sat at his Vox Continental organ, its distinctive drone already filling the room with an ominous undertone. Robbie Krieger tuned his Gibson SG, preparing for the flamenco-influenced picking that would weave through the song's hypnotic foundation. John Densmore adjusted his drum kit, knowing his restrained jazz-influenced rhythms would need to carry this epic without overwhelming Jim Morrison's vocals. Then, somebody suggested they turn off the studio lights. Candles were brought in. The control room lights dimmed to almost nothing. Sunset Sound, a place where pop hits were manufactured under bright fluorescent lights, transformed into something that felt ancient, primal. In the flickering candlelight, Morrison closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was not quite the same person who'd walked into the studio. His voice dropped to almost a whisper as he began. What happened next transcended recording. It became ritual. Jim Morrison's voice moved from tender to menacing, from whispered confessions to primal screams. He prowled the studio like a caged animal, his leather pants creaking as he moved between the candles, his voice catching and breaking with raw emotion. The band followed him into the darkness. Ray's organ created waves of sound that seemed to breathe with Morrison's vocals. Robbie's guitar didn't just accompany, it conversed, answered, challenged. John Densmore's drums became a heartbeat, sometimes racing with excitement, sometimes slowing to an almost deathly crawl. For 11 minutes and 35 seconds, they created something that wasn't quite rock, wasn't quite poetry, and wasn't quite performance art, but was undeniably powerful. When Jim Morrison reached the song's most controversial section, verses that had gotten them banned from the Whisky, his voice became something otherworldly, channeling taboos that popular music had never dared approach. The take ended. The candles flickered. The four musicians sat in near silence, as if awakening from a shared dream. They had captured something that radio would never play in full. Something that would make audiences uncomfortable, something that pushed far beyond the boundaries of what rock music was supposed to be. But they also created something that would endure. Decades later, Francis Ford Coppola would choose The End to open Apocalypse Now. Its dark meditation on endings and psychological dissolution, the perfect soundtrack to a film about the heart of darkness. That candlelit session at Sunset Sound reminds us that sometimes the most powerful art comes from the willingness to turn off the lights and explore what emerges from the darkness.